Hi, and welcome to It's the Heart Work, People, Passion, and Purpose podcast. And I'm your host, Dr. Terry Ross. Our mission is to help people live the extraordinary life that they dream of. And today we have back with us by popular demand, Dr. Brenda Caldwell, better known as Dr. B, the Ambassador of Hope. And today she's going to talk with us about loneliness. We're going to talk about the effects of loneliness and ways to overcome loneliness. Dr. B, before we get into it, introduce yourself to my audience again because we're growing.
Well, I'm excited to be back with you, Dr. Ross, as always, on It's the Heart Work.
Thank
I
you.
am Dr. Brenda Caldwell, aka Dr. B, clinical therapist, ambassador of hope, champion for forgiveness, just an ambassador for people changing their lives and getting the most out of life. And so, as you know, Dr. Ross, I tell people from my worst day and my best day and every day in between, I'm hope on two legs. So certainly the topic that we're talking about today, certainly want to give people hope.
Absolutely. And so I was talking about loneliness today. Can you define what loneliness is for us?
Absolutely. When you talk about loneliness, you're talking about loneliness is associated with a feeling. So loneliness is the feeling of being alone, even if you may be in social situations around a lot of people. It's that sense of being alone, if you will, in the world. So when you're talking about difference between loneliness and perhaps isolation, isolation would be the lack of social contact with others. And we experienced that during the height of COVID. You know, we were all at home. There was a lot of isolation, if you will, from friends and from family because we couldn't have that really social connection with people. And a lot of people were really affected during that time. And now COVID is not as, at the height anymore. And so we're now congregating again and we're mixing in again. But when you struggle with that feeling of loneliness, loneliness is, again, it's the feeling of being alone or feeling of being isolated. If you feel that you are maybe that you're not being understood or maybe you're not being thought of well, or people maybe have forgotten about you. And so even though you may you can be alone and not live alone and not feel lonely, but there are people who can live with other people and yet feel alone. So it's an opposing thought there that doesn't seem to make sense, but a lot of people do struggle with that. It's that feeling that goes with that, and obviously it has some roots to that that sometimes people need to work through and talk through so that they can overcome. And I know we'll talk more about that, but that would be the basics of what loneliness is versus isolation.
Okay, so thank you for elevating loneliness versus isolation, because again, like you said, isolation is the lack of social contact. But you can also be in a room full of people and you feel lonely.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you said that loneliness is a feeling. With loneliness being a feeling, how does that feeling overcome us? What is it that make us have that feeling when we are actually around people?
So again, sometimes it could be a root of rejection. Perhaps a person has struggled all their lives with, again, in counseling, I do deal with this quite a bit, people dealing with maybe rejection issues or maybe abandonment issues. And so the inability to feel connected to other people kind of follows that person, right? And so that's how it plays a role in a person's life. And so it becomes a stronghold because you are thinking, and a stronghold is when you are believing something that's not true, but because you believe it, it affects you. So that's one of the ways in which loneliness, if you will, can manifest itself with people feeling rejection, feeling abandonment, feeling misunderstood, feeling again unloved for whatever reason, or just having never really been able to connect. And for some people, Dr. Ross, meeting people and connecting with people is just easy. It's just easy. For other people, it may be a struggle to really find that connection with other people in such a way that makes you feel accepted. And that's one of the human needs that we all have, is to feel a sense of belonging, a sense of acceptance, a sense of importance, and that kind of thing. So loneliness certainly can play out in that regard.
And when you mentioned the word connected, I had just wrote the word connection down because I wanted to ask you that. Because in order for you to be in a room full of people and feel like you're still lonely, there has to be a connection issue.
Yeah, it
And,
is.
and we have to dig, really dig within ourselves and see what are we bringing to the table that we
Absolutely.
can't connect, or are we literally in a space that there's no connection?
Yeah,
And
and go ahead.
now I was going to say I work with children. And
Okay.
one of the things that I know with children is that if you give them a sense of belonging, you won't have to worry about any of those other things that we worry about, like gangs and things like that, because these violent gangs, they are a vacuum for people who don't feel connection and security anywhere else.
And right.
So
That's a
if we
real
provide
that's a
if
point.
we provide that in the homes or in the schools or whatever social segments that we're in, we could
Right.
really help with some of that those other things when it comes to loneliness and feeling the connection and belonging.
Absolutely, because to your point, the reason that gangs have the hold, if you will, over people that they do is because gangs are a pseudo family, and
Mhm.
to be in a gang, there's a commitment. There's loyalty. I mean, you get jumped in and you're gonna get jumped out. But the essence of it is that people who end up in gangs many times are people who have the same issues, meaning a lot of kids that feel the spirit of rejection or have
Yes.
abandonment issues, if you
Uh-huh.
will. They gravitate to each other, and then if you will, they can create, if you will, their own pseudo family. Pseudo being a false family, but it feels a void and feels a need. And so again, gang members know that, and so they target, if you will, the
Yes.
kids that don't have friends, and so forth. So again, but it can also happen in an adult person's life as well. Becoming, maybe getting a person getting themselves perhaps in wrong associations or unhealthy relationships, just out of a sense of loneliness and wanting to connect. That's how sometimes perhaps women may meet, unfortunately, men may not be good for them, because
Absolutely.
again, that person, if you will, knows that this is a woman perhaps that doesn't have friends and doesn't have family around, or is a person that seems to be quite lonely. And so there are predators out there, if you will, that are trying to draw people in, and then sometimes people unfortunately get in bad situations just
Yes.
out of having loneliness that they've never dealt with, because again, loneliness is more of a feeling. It's a feeling that's associated with loneliness. And so once you deal with the feelings, you can shift your thinking if you deal with the feelings and overcome it.
Thank you for sharing that, because I had a question I wanted to wait till the end for, but you talked about that feeling. And I can remember growing up when we said, oh, I'm lonely or I'm bored. Boredom is one of the things that leads to you feeling lonely sometimes, I think.
I do. You're
What are,
right.
and especially young people, there's
Right.
always something to learn or something that we can be doing. And there have been times in my life that I felt deep rejection. There are
Okay.
times that I felt like I was just isolated and alone. And it began to reveal itself to me that during those times, those were the times that I was supposed to deepen my roots in what I was doing. I was not being isolated. I was not being buried. I was being planted so that I could grow. And I was
Mm,
being put in a space to learn new things and to expand. And the first couple of times it happened to me, it was devastating because I felt like I was just in this island. But then when I began to realize that, oh, this is time for me to grow, because we go through seasons in life. And I
Absolutely.
know that I had not always been lonely. I had not always been bored. And I look back and pulled on those times and I realized what I was doing. What would you say to people to help them uh, differentiate between not just isolation and loneliness, but isolation, loneliness, and boredom?
So, a good question. If one is bored, then there means that you have not tapped into, first of all, an opportunity to use time. Time
Mm.
is a gift in and of itself. It is one of the most precious gifts that we have. So the difference between people who are successful in life and people who by and large are not, if you will, is what a person who's successful does with his or her time. So when you
Yes.
find, so if someone is finding themselves bored, then you need to ask yourself, why am I bored? What am I
Yes.
doing with my
Yes.
time?
Yes.
Am I bored because I'm spending time with something that is fruitless, unproductive? We know that television has its place, but it's one of the biggest babysitters in the world.
Yes.
Social media, same thing. Again, it's only so much that we need to be watching there, because again, it's a time robber, and you can get bored, over time. But
Yes.
so in terms of being bored, lonely, and bored and isolated, it still comes down to us. It comes down to you as a person to really evaluate, what am I doing with my time? What
Yes.
what is my routine like? Right. And so if you don't like it, anytime you're bored, you can make a change. An inmate can be in prison and be bored and can decide, you know what, I'm gonna start reading. I'm gonna start going
Yes.
to the prison library. Right. I'm so in other words, for the most part, we all have the ability to change what we do with our time, that can if you will, bring us out of a sense of boredom. Because if you're bored, that means you're not tapping into something that stimulates your brain or stimulates your heart or
Absolutely.
motivates you. You haven't found something passionate to put your energy on. And anytime you do that, that in and of itself is a very much a cure for not just boredom, but that's a cure for isolation. That's a cure for loneliness. When you find a passion, when you find something that motivates you, something that you're interested in, it all comes down to the choice that we have. And God has given us 7 different abilities. And one of the abilities that we have is what's called volition. Volition is the ability to choose, Dr. Ross. Choose. We
You
have the
said
ability.
volition?
Volition.
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 Okay.
Yeah, volition. Volition. VOLITON. Volition is something that every human being inherently has, and that is the ability to choose. So, what does that mean? We can choose what we do with our time. We can choose whether or not to be in a relationship. We can choose what we want to eat for today. We can choose what we want to work on. We can choose what we watch on TV. We can choose whether or not to engage in social media. So, a lot of this can really be rectified with us taking ownership and really examining our lives, especially as we're starting a new year off,
Yes.
2023. It's always great. We want to hit a reset button when it's a new year. We start looking at, okay, what do I want to do different? What did I not accomplish? But bringing it all back to loneliness, it's absolutely imperative that you
Yes.
look at your life and look at yourself, to see, why am I lonely? Why do I feel so alone? What has happened to me that causes me to feel disconnected socially, or to
Mm.
feel disconnected in a crowd? What do I need to work on? What do I need to learn to discover about me? Maybe there's some fear. Maybe there's some fear of, again, fear of being rejected, fear of being let down, fear of being abandoned, fear of someone dropping you like a hot potato, or what have you. So those are some issues that counseling can help with a person who's suffering from severe loneliness. I will throw that out
Yes.
as a therapist, and just say, if someone is dealing with chronic loneliness that they can't seem to shake, no matter what, then that's when some therapy would be really good. Seeking some professional help, which I'm so glad to see so many more people are embracing
Yes.
Therapists as they are embracing, a regular PCP, right? It's like,
Yes.
especially this generation of people that are realizing that they need to work through. Let me work through these feelings. Why do I feel lonely? But there are some things that we can do that can change that, that we do have some control over.
Yes. Well, thank you for that. That's huge. And you spoke directly to me because I was sitting in a space where, again, I felt like I was lonely.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons I started this podcast. And because at the core, I really had to dig deep. Like, why do you want to start a podcast? Because at the core, I'm a teacher.
Okay.
And I want to teach. But when you're a teacher, you're also a learner.
That's right.
And I learned so much from my guests that I have on the podcast. And I'm also in a position where I'm not always teaching, but I'm facilitating the teaching from the greats such as yourself. So oftentimes, and I'm saying this to say to the audience that oftentimes when we feel like we're lonely, when we feel like we're isolated, again, that's God telling us to expand. That's that part of us that part of us that wants to get up and do something different, but we may be afraid. It may, like you said, it's a fear of rejection. And I can remember for years I didn't dance because I asked several people sometimes to dance and they would say no. And then I just had to push past that. I'm gonna dance tonight if I have to ask everybody in there. Somebody want to dance.
That's right.
So, I'm
And
not gonna.
you have to dance by yourself
If I
sometimes.
have to
Okay.
dance by myself, if I have to go to the mirror
That's right. That's
and
right.
dance by
That's right.
myself. And so we have to, it's little small things that builds up
Right.
to make people feel that they can't, or put that wall around them where they're afraid to come out and introduce themselves to people. So I just want to push that in those points, in those periods in our lives when we're lonely, when we feel isolated, let's look inside. And I love that what you said earlier. Everything you said went back to the person.
That's right.
To us, what is the work that we have to do? We can't change other people. We can't work on other people. All we can do is work on ourselves. And sometimes it may be the crowd that we're around. It may not be that we're lonely. We may be in a position where we have outgrown.
That could very well be it. It could
And
very well.
that's not a good way to say it, but there are times that we do elevate in our consciousness that we
That's
can
right.
no longer be around the people. Like they may have known you as the loud, rowdy person.
Right.
But you've elevated now, and you're no longer the loud, rowdy person that wants happy hour every day. So
Right.
now, what's your new crowd? And you don't have
Right.
to go to another extreme, and your new crowd is now just Bible study. There's an
Right.
in between.
Right. That's right. And I do want to say to you that I certainly appreciate your transparency. And so here's the thing to encourage you, Dr. Ross, and for
Yes.
anyone else, again, in your position that suddenly kind of you find yourself in a different space within
Yes.
what you do. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. And that is so important. I think I may have mentioned it on one of our earlier podcasts, and that is when you shift your focus,
Yes.
you will shift your feelings.
Yes.
And so, in other words, it all comes down to what are you focused on? Sometimes it looks like it may be wrapped up, like sometimes a gift is wrapped up in newspaper.
Yes.
And so if it's wrapped up in newspaper, it may not be as attractive as
Yes.
that glittery, shiny paper, right? That we
Yes.
that we would call a gift.
Yes.
And so to encourage you to know, which is what I tell all of my clients, all my counselees, and that is 2 words. Three words. You are needed. You're
Yes.
so
Yes.
needed.
Yes.
And to know when you know that you're needed, that your work is needed, your voice is needed. It is that in and of itself is a motivating factor to push past what we would think is loneliness and isolation.
Yes.
We all have a need for human contact. We do. COVID put that on full blast.
Yes.
It did. It did. There were people who literally died lonely. There were people who unfortunately had to leave the world alone.
Yes.
Because the virus was just so deadly at that time. I have a friend who her children had to watch her pass away on FaceTime, literally take her last breath. That's a devastating thing to live with. However, they've been keeping her memory alive and her spirit alive and everything, because it is more about how we live than how we die. Hello,
Yes.
you have to remember
Yes.
that. It's how we live.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. That's deep. Thank you.
It's how we live. It's how we live. So I just want you to be encouraged in that regard, and that is to keep pushing, because you never know who's watching, who's listening, and who's really, really, really encouraged by this podcast and the work that is, and how people just need a word of life. And because there are people who are doing great things, but they feel like they are alone. They feel isolated. They feel like, it's not really making a difference. And that's just not so. It's not the case at all. We are all touching somebody's life. And that's why I'm just such a champion for the theme of you matter. You matter.
Yes.
You matter. I
Absolutely.
matter, for sure.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. How do we prevent loneliness, and what are some ways to overcome loneliness?
So, very good question. How do we really prevent loneliness? One of the things that we need to do, again, is make a decision. And if you're watching this podcast and you've struggled with loneliness and you know what it's like to feel, like you said, alone, whether you're married, even with children, you can still feel a sense of loneliness. Maybe again, there's a lack of connection when there's a sense of loneliness. To prevent it, honestly, is to really come out of your shell, to decide that what God placed you in the earth for is valuable. So that's the first thing. You must establish a sense of value and worth for your life. That's the first thing, because it's all mental. It's really all mental, really and truly. And so to prevent a loneliness is to make sure that you get involved, whether it is involving yourself in some kind of, maybe whether it's an exercise class, whether it's going to some social event. In other words, if you want to break the cycle of loneliness, you want to decide that somebody needs what you have in you, and the only way that they're ever going to meet you is you got to go somewhere. Am I right, Dr. Ross?
Absolutely.
You've got to go somewhere. I know a lot of people work from home. I get the blessing of being able to work from home. I had an office when COVID shut down. My office shut down. I've never gone back to an office. I've worked from home since. And so I have to be intentional, to get out and congregate. And so being able to, if you want to prevent loneliness, is you've got to wake up, first of all, with a sense of purpose, a sense of mission, a sense of value. And then whether it's having an online community, you can join some online group. It's hundreds, if not thousands of groups out there. What you can do is you can decide, whatever your passion is, whether it's a hobby, whatever you're interested in. Nowadays, there's a group out there. There's somebody that's if you're a dog lover and a cat lover, if you are a squirrel lover, if you are somebody who loves painting, whatever your passion, whatever that interest is, no matter how it may sound to anybody else, there's another group out there. So I would say find people that you can connect with, whether it's, again, online, in person. You want to strengthen. Another thing to do, Dr. Ross, simple things. If you want to prevent loneliness, check on somebody. Check on somebody.
Yes. You're giving a gift and you're getting a gift. Oh, Dr. B, that.
It's so simple that we miss it. Because a lot of times we look at deep clinical answers and all of that sounds really good, but check on somebody.
Be of service.
Give a service. Listen, volunteer.
Yes.
One of the most rewarding experiences and richest experiences of my life is when I choose to give back. And so for 30 plus years, I have selected organizations to give back. I just selected my new organization for 2023, Memphis Day Center. This is where men and women who are in recovery have issues with the state. They are mandated to come and participate in life skills and so forth. Listen, I ran into a junior high friend from Cypress Junior High. We got to talking. He connected me with his wife who does this work. He told her about me. Next thing I know, I'm volunteering there. Are you with me? So there's a way for you to just get involved because somebody needs what's placed in you. And so if you want to prevent loneliness, if we're going to prevent loneliness, Dr. Ross, in isolation, we have to do something that takes us out of our comfort zone and places us somewhere where we are absolutely needed. And then again, one of the last things on that too is cultivate the relationships that you do have.
Yes.
So if you only have one friend, well, the world's best-selling book called the Bible says something that I love. And it says, there's a friend that sticks closer than a brother. It says friends love at all times, right? And so there's something about nurturing what one friend or two friendships that you do have. So you don't have to have 25 friends. You know, I think it's very hard to have 25 close friends.
You're not going to.
You're not gonna not in reality. It takes time to nurture and you got friends on different levels. But again, if you want to prevent loneliness, sow the seed of cultivating the friendships or the relationships that you do have, sowing that seed, checking on people, calling, picking up the phone. Everything is not a text message. So those kinds of things come back to you. And then you're sowing the seed. So then people will be calling and checking on you. So it's a lot of times it's simple things that we can do.
Absolutely. And I just want to give everyone a reality check. You talked about 25 friends. I recently saw Oprah Winfrey and Gayle King talking. You know, they're BFFs, as they say, they're best friends. And Oprah and Gayle said that they had just read something that said everyone have at least 10 friends. And Oprah and Gayle said that. I don't think the two of them came up with 10 friends together.
That's right.
So I think that we have this unrealistic reality around what friendship and what having fun is because we have 3,000 Facebook friends. We have 3,000 Facebook connections, not friends.
That's it. That was the problem that I had with Facebook, naming that friends. It took me a long time to embrace Facebook friends. Friends is just too much of a cherished relationship to just be calling any and everybody your friend.
Yes.
That's too deep of a word. It's too affectionate. And I just don't call everybody my friends. I know a lot of people, but the friend circle is small. Yes. And so if that's the case, if you're cultivating that, you don't have to be lonely because you and if you don't have one friend. So Dr. Ross, what do you do for somebody who's listening and they're saying, well, I don't have any friends. And one of the things that I did read about loneliness is that right now you got the younger generation. For a long while, it was more the senior population that was really struggling with loneliness. Now what you have is you have a lot of the younger generation, 18 to 27, as a result of social media. A lot of them are struggling with true friendships.
Absolutely.
And struggling with isolation because that's what social media has done. You know, people they're not real friends.
They're not. Absolutely.
You don't even know these people. And so, so in terms of having true, genuine friends, that's going to be generally on one hand. That you can, on one hand. And so you cultivate those relationships.
And I've heard something recently that really helped me in that area is be a friend to yourself.
That's it. Touchdown.
Love yourself. Be a friend to yourself. And what you do to yourself, the world gives it back to you 10 times.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter. If you don't exercise and take care of yourself, the world gonna give you an unhealthy lifestyle 10 times.
Come on.
If you love yourself and you're eating healthy, you're drinking healthy, you're being kind to yourself, those are the type of people you're going to attract.
Absolutely. Well
So
said.
all of this goes back to self, and I've been helped so much. Like I feel like I've been on the therapist couch tonight. So
It's I'm so glad. I'm so glad. But if I can make that point with you and just echo what you're saying, one of the things that's so important to do, it really is, and we can talk about it on a later show and going more in depth, and because we're talking about loneliness, but I need to really make this point as someone who lives alone. You can live alone and enjoy life to the fullest. And
yes,
and there's a reason for that. That's because when you're in connection with yourself, when you value yourself, when you love yourself, when you're good to yourself, when you appreciate how you were created and what your contribution is to the world,
mm-hmm.
you'll be like me. Take yourself out to dinner.
Yes,
Take yourself out to lunch. You don't have to go and buy yourself all. But listen, I have bought myself roses. Hello,
it's
I love
okay.
roses. I love flowers. Come on,
All
come
right.
on. And so you do those small things like that. It makes you feel good about your own self. Makes you feel good about your
Absolutely.
own. Too much power, Dr. Ross, is given to other people. And
Yes.
so we need to take our power back
Mm-hmm.
and stop waiting for somebody to come and do something for us that we could do ourselves. And
Yes.
so, if we're going to overcome loneliness, decide that we matter, decide that we have a mission, decide that we have a purpose, decide that we are needed, and allow ourselves to be given out. Because I have learned that over the years of pouring myself out on other people, I've gotten it all back multiplied. You get
Yes.
you
Be
you
of
just
service.
be of service. Be
Yes,
of
that's one of the things I found. If you be of service, it's not going to come back to you oftentimes from where you give the service, but it's going to
Absolutely.
come back from so many other places. So thank you so much, Dr. B. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience before we leave?
I want the audience to know during this holiday season and then as we enter into 2023 that you can tell yourself 2023 is the year for me to be free. 2023 is the year for me. Listen, 2023, I got so many rhythms and rhymes. Listen, I'm just excited about 2023. I am because I see
Touchdown.
I do. I'm telling you, I see it's a hard work.
Yes.
Glory to God, going global, touching lives, impacting people, impacting teachers, impacting those who serve the community because it's the hard work. I see 2023 being a year of just tremendous evolution of growth, just spectacular. That word spectacular. I love that word spectacular. I see 2023 being that. And so, listen, no need to be lonely, no need to be isolated, no need to hide behind a box or hide behind a screen. Come out, wake up, get up, look up, come on, rise up. You know, Dr. Ross, I've got to give a motivating word, right?
Yes.
Can't help
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Can't help
Yes.
it. It's in
Come on
me.
through.
It's in me. I just want those who are watching or listening to know as the ambassador of hope. I am absolutely I'm your champion to tell you
Yes.
that you absolutely matter. You matter more in 2023. We need you. We need you to get on your post. We need you to decide that you're going to get in the game of life and that you're going to give life your best in 2023 because there is great things on the horizon for you. There are doors that are going to open for you that no man can close. Listen to me. There are new doors coming your way, Dr. Ross.
Oh,
You're
we're receiving
in
it.
demand as a consultant, in
We
demand
are
for
receiving
you're
it.
gonna go from having people, I want to be on your podcast, I want to be this.
Yes.
That's what's coming. So
Yes.
stay faithful to the work, and just know that I'm so glad and excited that we were able to partner together.
Absolutely.
But it's going down in 2023. It is.
Absolutely. And my motto has now been set. 2023 is my year to be free.
Woo!
That's
Hello,
it. We're talking
hello.
about financial freedom. We're talking about freedom from addictions,
Yes.
freedom from bad memories, freedom
Come
just
on.
from all of those things that's been holding us back.
That's
We
right.
are
That's right.
free in 2023.
Free
Thank you,
from
Dr. B.
rejection, free from abandonment, free from word curses that people spoke
Yes,
over us. Come on, free, being free, and I'm telling you, it's in my spirit so strong that more people are going to get shackles off of them, like
yes,
the Mary song, take the shackles off my feet.
yes.
Listen, there's some shackles coming off in 2023 for real. 2023 is the year to be free. Woo!
And we're going to close on that. Thank you so much, Dr. B. You're always so inspiring, so encouraging, and you leave us with strategies. Thank you so much. I know a lot of people are going to enjoy this, not just for the holiday season, but just for life, period. And guys, remember, thank you for watching. It's the Heart Work, People, Passion, and Purpose podcast. And remember to enjoy the journey because someone wishes they were in your shoes. Thank you.